Hello, welcome to the video. This presentation will describe a new TRIRIGA Perceptive application called MoveMe. Today we're going to cover a number of items. We're going to start off with an overview of the MoveMe application. Then we're going to take a look at some of the configuration parameters that can be used with this application. Then I'll walk through many of the pages in the application, both from the desktop version and the mobile version, and highlight some of the key features that you can take advantage of. Next, I'll move on to some topics. The topic of how to integrate, how this application is integrated with TRIRIGA. We'll cover some of the typical customization scenarios. Then I'll cover some troubleshooting tips, just in case you run into any issues with your configuration, mainly with configuration, or any unexpected issues. There's a new Vulcanize process that I'll discuss briefly, and then finally I'll cover some reference material that allow you to take a deeper dive into other topics. And then the last thing I'll do is demo the product, provide a live demo. So if you're new to Perceptive applications, this is TRIRIGA's next generation of applications. They're focused on providing a more intuitive, user-centered experience. We're using the IBM TRIRIGA UX framework that has been developed recently. There's a number of presentations on that framework, and that's referenced at the back of this, at the end of this presentation. And we're using the latest web technologies. We're using HTML5 and CSS3, JavaScript. We're using the Google Polymer library. It's basically, we're using web components, and they're custom reusable extensible elements. And during our design, we're using responsive web design, so you can run these applications, in particular, our applications on different devices. A little background on specifically on MoveMe and what this application does. Again, it's a Perceptive self-service application that allows an end user to submit a move request to move from one location to another. It includes a number of features. We'll go through just a few. These are going to be covered in detail in the presentation and the demo, but I'll just highlight these main ones here. So again, the user can create a move request using either a desktop or mobile device. Once they get into the application, they can search for a particular building based on the city that it's located in or the campus it's located on. They can search for rooms in a particular building or on a floor within that building. They can search for rooms based on a move date. If they want to move 4 months from now, they can say what's going to be available then. The user can display floor plan graphic that gives them a visual picture of the layout for the space, and they can also, if they know that a coworker will be in that particular on that particular building and floor, they can identify the coworker and have the graphic display a pin where that coworker is located. So if they want to move close to that person, they can also specify a particular organization. So if they want to find the spaces that are allocated to a particular organization and want to sit in that area, they can have those highlighted on the floor plan graphic. Once they've submitted the request, they can check back using this application, determine the status of the request, and what the scheduled move date is. They can cancel the request if they no longer need to make the move, and they can always look at their request history. to see if they need any information on past requests. There's also options in this application to allow the user to select available rooms based on their functional entitlements, and we'll provide some more details on that. And finally, some organizations like to have or want to allow people to submit move requests, but don't want them to. But they want to disable room selection, so they just want them to select a building and floor, and we'll cover that option too. Okay, let's start with some of the configuration options that are available in this application. The primary areas that we're going to focus on are in application settings and building move policy. We'll start with application settings. For application settings, we're going to allow users to specify a room when they submit a move request. You can either allow or enable or disable that setting, and we'll show you later on how the screens change based on the value you configure for that setting. You can restrict move locations based on entitlements. If users are only authorized to move to a particular type of space, there's a way to configure your system to enforce those functional role entitlements. And there's also a way, in this application we display images. For example, there's images associated with spaces, and there's a application setting to allow you to disable those images if you don't want them displayed in the pages in the application. Performance improvement, and also takes up some real estate. Sometimes you may not want those there. In addition to the application settings, we have some building move policy settings. And the first one there is to specify that a building is available for the MoveMe self-service move request. So if you want a building to be included when the user searches for buildings, you need to enable that particular setting. And then the second one is to override the application setting, entitlement setting, in the case where the application setting has said that we're not going to restrict move locations to we're not going to restrict move to locations based on functional role entitlements. You can indicate that you want a particular building to enforce those functional role entitlements. So you'll override the application setting. And the other area where you can do some configuration is we use graphics throughout the MoveMe application. So you can use the TRIRIGA CAD Integrated Publisher to develop any floor plans that you want displayed within the application. Otherwise, you'll get a list of spaces and not the visual view. So those are some key planning areas prior to deploying the application. So we'll go into a few more details and show you where those application settings can be enabled or disabled. In the application setting, if you go into application settings and click on the Move Planning Settings tab, the first item that you see there at the top, highlighted in red, is universally don't allow two locations to be selected for these self-service requests. So if that's enabled, the user won't be able to select a particular a room. They'll just be able to select building and floor. The second item there is to enable the functional role entitlements, and that's a concept that's been in TRIRIGA Move planning for a while. And essentially, if you want to allow them to select rooms based on their entitlements, you enable that checkbox. And then the last one at the bottom of the screen, highlighted in red, is a checkbox to disable the display of images within the Move application. And then we move to the building move policy. If you, from within TRIRIGA, you go to portfolio and select a building. In this case, I've chosen the Watson building and selected the move tab. On this tab, we have some move policy settings. And if you want, for any buildings you want displayed within the Move Me application, you'll need to enable the first item that's highlighted in red here. Do you want the ability to the ability to select a move to a location for self-service move request? So if you enable that, as this one is, this building will be shown when a user is searching for buildings. And then finally, if you want to override the functional role entitlements flag on application settings for this particular building, you can set the flag to enabled here. And then finally, we have just a quick refresher on we covered entitlement. We talked about entitlements. Entitlements include some a little more detailed configuration, and involves the person record, the space that the person is looking to move into, the space class associated with that location, and a space standard specification. All of those business objects go into defining these functional role entitlements, and there's more information in the TRIRIGA Applications Knowledge Center, and that's referenced later in the presentation. Now we're going to take a look at how to use the Move Me application. To navigate to the application, the user has two different options. The first option is to navigate directly from TRIRIGA, and the second option is to navigate via a browser by specifying the correct URL address using the syntax shown on the center of the slide here. When the user invokes the application with either method, the first thing the application does is determines whether the user has an active request or not. If they have an active request, the My Request page is displayed. If they don't have an active request, that page is bypassed, and the user is sent automatically to the search page so they can get started looking for available rooms. The other thing the application does when it's first started is it determines what the screen size is for your particular device. It looks at the height and the width and determines which version or which format it's going to use for displaying the application. And it'll either use a desktop version or a mobile version based on the device screen size. So within TRIRIGA, if you've logged in TRIRIGA and if you navigate to My Request and then look at the tabs on the left hand side under Request Central, under the Space section you'll see a Move Me link to invoke the application. Once you've invoked the application, you'll see here the initial page, My Request page, will be displayed, and what we're seeing here is the desktop version. And in this version, on the top left, we have two tabs. We have an In Progress tab and we have a History tab. The In Progress tab is going to show requests with a status of draft or revision in progress or review in progress or issued, and the History tab is going to show any historical requests, the ones that have a status of completed. If the user wants to create a new request, they can click the New Request button, and if the user wants to refresh the status of the information for one of these requests, they can click the Refresh button. If I click the History tab, we'll see in this case we don't have any history. If there had been previous moves by this particular user, we would see cards with some history of when the move occurred and where the person moved to. In this case, there are no moves, so there's just an informational message telling the user that they can create a new request by clicking the New Request button. So once the user clicks the New Request button, they'll be taken to the search page. At the top of this page, starting on the left-hand side, we'll take a look at the Where section. Across from that Where label, there's a checkbox that says Skip Room Search. If the user doesn't want to select a particular room within a building, they can enable that checkbox. Otherwise, they can continue on in the Where section, and they can first start by deciding whether they want to narrow the list of available buildings by selecting a city where the building would be located, or a campus where the building is located, or both. Whenever the user selects a value for city or campus, the list of buildings available in the drop down is changed and set to only those buildings in that particular city and or campus. And then whenever the user selects a building, the floor field drop down list of floors is modified to only display the floors that are available in that particular building. So for the Where section, the required fields prior to searching are the building and the floor fields. Beneath the Where section is the Other Search Criteria section. In this section, there's a couple other options. The first option is to identify a person, a coworker, that you want to know where when you want to know where that particular coworker sits. You can specify there's a drop down there and you can select the person's name, and when we click search and it displays the floor plan graphic, it will pin that person on the graphic if they're in the building and floor that you have selected. The other field under Other Search Criteria is Close to My Organization, and by default that field will put in there the organization that you belong to. But you can select another organization if you wish, and for that field, when the search is clicked, the floor plan graphic will show all the spaces that are assigned to that particular organization, color-coded with green, and we'll see that in a minute. On the right hand side of this slide, we see a calendar where you can indicate the date when you want to move. Do you want to move in 2 weeks? Do you want to move in 2 months? You can identify it, and the date has to be greater or than today. It can't be anything prior to today's date. So the required fields on this page are the building, the floor, and a move date. So we'll click search. If the user clicks search, we'll go to the next page. Before we get to the available rooms page, I just want to show you, earlier we talked about some configuration options, and one of the options under application settings was to disallow the 2 location selection for self-service requests. And if that's the case, your search page here is going to look a little different. We're not going to have the skip checkbox, and we're not going to have the other criteria, and the search button is going to say next, and it's not going to route you to the available rooms page. It's going to bring you right to the summary. So those are the options. Those are the changes that occur when you enable that configuration option. Assuming you hadn't enabled those options and you click search, you would end up on the available rooms page. On this page, we have at the top, we have two tabs, a floor plan tab and a list tab. By default, the floor plan tab will be displayed if you have a graphic associated with the building and floor. Otherwise, the list tab will be displayed automatically. Under the floor plan and list tabs, we have a search field. So if you want to narrow down your search, and we'll cover that in a minute. And then we have some information about the building and floor and how many rooms there are available. And an option to the right, if you decide you really don't want to select a building, you select a space, you can click the skip room search link and go directly to the summary page. In the middle of the page, on the left-hand side, we have a list of just the available spaces, where the user can select any of those any of the rows in that list. And when they select that row, the corresponding field on the graphic will be highlighted. In the middle, the user can also select on any of the spaces on this floor plan graphic, and when they select that space, the item in the list, corresponding item in the list, will be highlighted. One thing you can also see in the middle is the pinned location for Al Nathan, and it shows automatically. By default, the pin is opened, and it shows you which the name of the space and the name of the person who's in that space. So then you can decide based on where that person is where you want to move. To the right of the graphic is our legend, and it gives an indication of what's the color codes in the graphic. By default, we have that software group organization that was specified on the search page, and any spaces owned by that organization are highlighted in green, and they're light green, green if they're available, light green if they're unavailable, and then all other organizations that are spaces that are assigned to all other organizations are color coded in this brown color, and the darker color being available and the lighter color being that they are unavailable. When the user's ready, has selected, found the space they want to move to, they simply click the select button beneath the graphic. So once a space is selected, this information is displayed below the graphic, and the select button appears. They can click on that, or they can click on the select button in the list on the left. Another capability that's available if you want to get a little closer view of the rooms surrounding or in a particular location on that floor, we have pan and zoom. You can move the graphic around, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, and whatever position you put it in will be maintained for the duration of your session. I briefly touched on the search earlier. If you start typing some text in the search field, you'll see this drop-down list of selection criteria, or spaces that meet that criteria, and you can select the ones that you want highlighted on your graphic and in your list. Once you've selected those ones you want and click Done, on the next page, you'll see the items that you listed in that in the space field up top, and then beneath it you'll see the number of rooms that are available has been narrowed down to 8, and the list on the left-hand side is updated with those 8 spaces, and the graphic only highlights in dark brown those 8 spaces. If those spaces were in your organization, they'd be in dark green, but it narrows down the focus for you to the spaces that you've identified with your search criteria. And then if we switch over and click the list tab, you'll see we have a card view of the items as opposed to the list view, and that's in the case where you don't configure floor plans and include them in your location data. So here that the function is similar to what we had on the floor plan tab. They can search, they can skip the room search, and then they can scroll up and down to see the available spaces. Here again, you see only the available spaces, with the ones you specified on the search page being color-coded in green, and the ones that are for all other organizations color-coded in brown. Once the user selects the space either from this tab, the list tab, or the floor tab, they'll be routed to the summary page. On the summary page, starting on the left-hand side here, we have the move date that was selected back in your search page. We have a reason field, which is a drop-down field that identifies some reasons for moving, which the user can select. And then we have some other instructions where the user can provide any detailed information for the planning group. If the user decides that they want to change the move date, they click the change link that's highlighted in red up at the top left hand side, and that'll redirect them back to the search page. And the reason they're brought back to the search page is because once you change a move date, you need to research for available spaces. So that's where they're sent to. On the right hand side, we have tabs, the from and to tabs. The from tab provides information about the user's current location, and the to tab provides information about the space they've selected to move to. And if they decide that that's really not the space they want, they can click the change link above the graphic, and they'll be redirected back to the available rooms page. Once the users review the information on this screen, they can decide whether they really want to submit this request or cancel it. If they click cancel, it will remove the request and return them back to the main My Request page. If they would like to submit a request, they'll click submit, and they'll see a little toast message indicating that the request was submitted. It will give them the ID for the request and also return them to the My Request page. Next, we're going to take a look at the mobile format for the MoveMe application. When the user invokes the application from a mobile device like an iPhone, they'll see a little different format on their screen. And here's the initial My Requests page that gets displayed. The key differences in this page, in this format compared to the desktop format, is that all of the information is displayed in a single column. So if there are multiple requests, they'll be displayed down the page, and the buttons are in a different location. For mobile users, the buttons are at the bottom of the screen, as we see the refresh and the new button there. Easier access for a mobile device. When the user clicks new, they'll be directed to the search page, and again, the search page has the same information as the desktop format. The layout changes a little bit. The where section is the same. When we get down to the when section, instead of having a calendar view, we have a date picker. So if the user clicks on the icon to the right of the date, it'll pop up a little date picker where they can select a date, or they can actually type in text into the field. The other change in the screen at the top of the screen, if the user wants to not navigate back to the My Request page, they can click the back arrow there. And at the bottom of the screen, we have the search icon there that they can tap if they want to search for available rooms. Now, one thing I didn't mention on the desktop version was that if they don't specify all the 3 required fields, building, floor, and a requested move date, the button or the icon at the bottom, the search icon, will be disabled until they do specify those values. Once they are specified, they can click the search and they will be routed to the available rooms page. And again, this information is the same as the desktop version. The differences are you'll see the legend is not opened by default on this page, so there's more room to display the floor plan graphic. And at the top we have the back arrow if you want to go back to the search page. And the once they've selected a room, the room information is displayed beneath the graphic, and they can click select to go to the summary page. Then once they go to the summary page, again, this has all the same information as the desktop. The only changes being the buttons at the bottom of the page and back navigation at the top of the screen. So that's it for the mobile format of the MoveMe application. Now let's cover the integration topic. So when a user submits a request in the MoveMe application, what actually happens under the covers is a move request is actually created, and associated with that move request is a move request line item. And those objects are populated with all the information required so that the move planner can come in and use the plan moves application to display that particular request and continue on in the process of working with that request. When the move planner starts working with the user's move request, the status may change on the request, or the scheduled move date may change as they move it into a project or task, and that information will be reflected back in the MoveMe application when the user logs in. Just to give everybody sort of an idea of the key business objects that are being used by this application, I've included this slide. When the move request is created, it has both a from and a to location associated with that request, and that location includes a building floor and a space. Not always a space, but eventually it'll be space will be populated if the system is configured not to allow the user to specify a space. The move request also has a person associated with it, the person who the move request was requested by. Then the person has there's associations between a person and the current building or location that they're located in, and that information is used to populate the move request. And then we use in the application organization information to on the search page, we default the user's default. We put the user's default organization in there, so when we're searching for spaces, we can highlight spaces owned by that organization. And then another key object that's being used is the application settings object to do some of the configuration, to set some of the configuration options that are used in the application. If users want to customize the MoveMe application, one of the things they'll have to do is work with our new UX designers that were added in a previous release, and these designers were used to create the MoveMe application. We've got the model designer, and within that designer, they'll find that the try move request record, and that's basically the model that's used for MoveMe. There's the web view designer, and actually we've got the web view designer, the model and view designer, and the application designer, which all include multiple objects. One of the objects is includes the code, what we call the development code, and the other object is what we call the Vulcanize code, and we'll cover this Vulcanize process a little later. But I've added those on this page just to indicate that when you look at these designers, you'll see in some cases multiple objects associated with this application, and you'll have to work with those during customization. And then at the bottom of the screen, you see an example of if you go into the model designer, you'll see the key object we use is this try move request, and it starts showing some of the data sources associated with that move request. And in the back of we have in the reference section we describe how to use this. We provide a link to the UX framework documentation. Some additional customization information. If you want to start modifying the HTML files that are used in this application, you can use a tool called WebViewSync to pull and to sync and then make changes and then sync that file with TRIRIGA. You can see at the bottom of the screen here we have some information about the help information for WebViewSync. If you're going to be customizing this application, you'll need to be familiar with HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript, and Google Polymer if you really want to make any major changes. Some typical customization scenarios would be to just add and remove fields, or to modify some of the labels within on the screens, or maybe even to modify the workflows that are tied to some of the actions in the HTML code. So you could all do those using WebViewSync to pull the HTML files, make modifications, and then resyncing up that file. If you are going to customize the applications, so one of our recommendations in the debugging area is to use the Chrome Web Developer tools. They're extremely helpful in stepping through the code. There's a nice capability to set breakpoints and inspect your elements and make sure they contain what you want, and even take a look at network traffic to see if you're having any issues. You can also use the existing TRIRIGA tools to debug your changes, taking a look at reports and workflows and server logs. And then the TRIRIGA UX provides some custom code to help you called triplat debug. A little typo there. The hyphen shouldn't be there. And up to the top right here, you see here's some information that you can, if you look at the documentation for triplat debug, it allows you to display information on the console about your as your code is your JavaScript is being processed. And then the screen at the bottom shows an example of working with the Chrome developer tools. And then the next topic here we want to cover is troubleshooting. So if you're experiencing any unexpected behavior, probably the first place you want to start is to take a look at the TRIRIGA error logs. Log in to the admin console and check the logs and see if there were any error messages in them. So that would probably be the first place to start. The other place you can start, in particular with this new MoveMe Perceptive app, is to run the application under Chrome and start your Chrome developer tools. And if you activate those tools and then click on the console tab, if there's any errors on the client side, you'll see issues displayed on that console. So that information would could be helpful in solving, at least getting a feel for what the problem area is. Um, I've also provided some specific procedures for diagnosing some of the common issues that you may see as you work with the MoveMe application. And I've sort of identified them by page here. Um, all right, so one thing you might notice when you're on the My Request page is that one of your requests if you've submitted a request, um, the cancel button that's normally displayed with that request is not shown, and that's normal if it's right after you've submitted the request, because that request may be going through an approval process, and the request has to move through different states, and once it's approved, then we can add the cancel button and allow you to cancel that request once it gets to certain states. So in order to get around that problem, if you just refresh the screen, eventually the cancel button, depending on how long the approval process takes, the cancel button will be displayed. On the search page, you may notice that there are no selectable values for the building field. You can't select a particular building is basically what I'm saying here. And so for that, you need to check the move policy and make sure that you've enabled that building to be displayed. Another item you may see on the search page is that the skip room search checkbox is not displayed, and the button label at the top right defaults to next. And for that, if you weren't expecting that, check the application settings and see if you have the disallow two locations for self-service applications setting enabled. And on the available rooms page, you may not see a floor plan on the floor plan tab. Just an informational message saying you don't have a floor plan. So if you think there's one supposed to be there, you should verify, go into TRIRIGA and verify that you've configured a floor plan for that selected building. Another problem you may see on the available rooms page is that the floor plan is not displaying any available spaces. So this one's a little more difficult to determine. You're going to have to look at a number of different areas to determine if that information is correct or not. And it'll depend on your application settings and your move policy and whether the space is actually available. So here I provided some steps on where you go to look to determine whether the display is correct. Another potential problem you may see on the floor plan is that the floor plan doesn't highlight any spaces with the color green, basically representing the organization that you specified on the search page. And for that, you'll have to go and take a look at the building and floor and determine which organization is assigned to, actually look at the spaces associated with the building and floor and determine which organization those spaces are assigned to verify that the display is actually correct if you think it's not. And then finally, you may be expecting a pin on a particular floor plan indicating where your coworker is located. And if the coworker is not located on that floor, it's not going to be displayed. So if you can always go and take a look at the building and floor for that coworker, the room assigned to that coworker, and verify that they actually are in that building and space. And when the next topic here is a topic that's new for this release. With our new Perceptive apps, um, we can take these Polymer applications we've created and vulcanize them to improve performance. And what that vulcanize process does is it pulls in all the imports and flattens all the dependencies these files have and generates a single file. I think I showed you back earlier on a previous slide where in one of our UX designers, we had both dev files and files that ended in a dev suffix and those that did not. The ones that don't have a dev suffix are the Vulcanize files, and the ones that we have generated. And so we for MoveMe we have vulcanized our applications, and what this does is it reduces the number of requests that the application makes to the server and improves the performance. One key note here is when a customer upgrades the TRIRIGA platform code or they modify the MoveMe application files through customization, if they want to use those if they want their the vulcanized version of the application updated, they need to run the vulcanized process. And for details about this process, there's another T-Tech that covers all the details on the Vulcanize process and provides a link to a wiki with additional details. And lastly, as far as the slides, we provide some references to some information that will help users understand MoveMe and not just MoveMe, provide additional knowledge about TRIRIGA and developing perceptive applications and understanding how they fit into TRIRIGA. There's some overview information on developer works that talks about UX. There's the Knowledge Center that has a vast amount of information both on the applications and the platform. And there's information, there's a link here on creating those floor plan graphics using the CAD Integrator Publisher. And if you're interested in doing some major customization, there's a link to the Google Polymer site. So now I'm going to do a little live demo of the MoveMe application. And we're going to start with the desktop format. I'm going to log into TRIRIGA. And I'm going to navigate to the MoveMe application. So I go to My Request, under Request Central, under Space we have MoveMe. When I click on MoveMe, a new tab opens, and in the tab it says IBM TRIRIGA MoveMe, and we see here the My Request page is displayed by default. If I click on by default we have the In Progress tab showing with a single request that I previously entered, and I can also click to the History tab. I don't have any information on the History tab. If I want to create a new request, I can click the New Request button, and that brings me to the search page. On the search page, I can click at the top of the screen, I can click on Skip Room Search if I don't want to select a particular space or a room to be located to. And when I do that, it collapses the Other Search Criteria section. For now, I will deselect that, and I get the Other Search Criteria screen back. By default, I get, under the Where section, I get my current city, campus, building, and floor. And if I want to clear those and search for a different location, I can just click the clear button next to any of the fields. If I click next to the building field, it'll clear the building and the floors associated with that, since I haven't selected a building at this time. If I click the next to the city, it'll clear all the fields. In this case, I'm just going to go right in and select a building without selecting the city. And then I'm going to select a floor. And okay, so I've selected a building and a floor. I'll show you one other thing. If I clear the floor, the search button is disabled. So a floor is definitely required. Otherwise, you won't be able to search. I'll also go in and select a person that I want to be located near. And by default, my organization is there. On the right hand side, I can choose a date when I want to move. I'll choose January 31st. And now I'm ready to search for available rooms. So I click the search button. And when I click the search button, my available rooms page is displayed. In the middle on the graphic, you can see where Al Nathan is located. And I can begin by either clicking on that graphic. I can say I want to sit right next to Al Nathan, or I can change. Maybe I want to be close to him, or maybe I want to be pretty far away from him. Once I select a space on the graphic, the detailed information for that space is displayed at the bottom of the screen. If I deselect the space, that information goes away. If I select a space, the other thing that occurs is the space is also selected on the left-hand side. I can also work with a legend over here. If I only want to see the spaces associated with my organization, I can remove all the other organization spaces by deselecting that checkbox. Or if I want them back, I can get them returned. If I want to see this same view in if I want to see this information in the list view, I can click over to the list page. If I want to narrow my search, I can search for a particular room. In this case, I select just that room. I found it. There it is. I either can select it here, or I can click back over to the floor plan. And when I go to the floor plan, that is the only room that is on the screen, which is right there. It was a little difficult to see. I didn't choose a real good one. So if I change my mind and I want to search for something else, I can deselect that space and remove my search criteria, and let me search for something different. For example, if I wanted for BH06, if I didn't know where BH06 was, like it would BH06 we'll take here. And select that. Actually, that's back up. We'll go for BH07. Oh, it was a 07. And we'll select that. And there it is. I found the space, and I can just select that one. And if I click over to the list space, we'll see the list just has that single card for that space, so it maintains the search across the list. At this point, I have an option either to select that space or to skip the room search. I'll choose to select that space, and then I'm routed to the summary page. On the summary page, it has my move date that I selected on the search page. I can select a reason, department change, move me some special instructions, and so on the left hand, I fit out the information on the left. On the right hand side, I see my to location that I'm asking to be moved to. If I want to see my from location, I can click back to the from tab. So back to the To tab. If I want to change that location, if I change my mind and I don't want to move to that BH07 location, I can click the change button and it'll bring me back to the available spaces page. It'll clear that space. So now I can change this. I changed my mind. I want to be over here on this side of the building. So I select that and it moves me forward and it shows my new location where I want to be located to. If I realize that's not the right date that I had submitted originally, I can click this change button over here next to the date and it'll bring me back to the search page, and I can say no, I really want to move the 20th of January, and I can go through the selection process again. And here I'll select the office I want because it's still available. Then select the room I want to move to, and all my information is still here from previously. And at this point I can either cancel this request. No, I think I'll keep this request. I will submit it, and when I submit it, it'll provide information at the bottom of the screen indicating that the request was recreated, and provide the request number, and sure enough I have a second request in my request screen. Now, as you notice, I mentioned earlier that the cancel button is not available because this request for this new request, because it's going through the approval process. Once it's finished that process, it will be available. In the meantime, I will cancel this other request I had made because I no longer need that request, and that request is removed. And after it's removed, the screen gets refreshed, and now you do see the cancel for the new request if for some reason I decide I don't want that. And you can also refresh the screen with this refresh button to the right. So that covers the basic operation of the desktop format for the MoveMe application. Now we're going to take a look at the mobile version, mobile format of the application. Here I've gone to my browser. I'm using Chrome Developer Tools to show you to simulate an iPhone 6, and I've logged into the MoveMe application by specifying the correct URL here from my TRIRIGA system, and here is the my request page that gets displayed. One of the things you can do from this page is you can take a look at the summary page for this previously submitted request. So I can click on that request and it'll bring up the summary. Here it shows my request, and it's read-only, but it tells pretty much where I want to move to. And when I'm done looking at the summary page, I can click Done to go back to the main page. If I want to create a new request, again, I have the buttons at the bottom of the page. I'll click the icons at the bottom. I'll click the new icon, and when I click that icon, I get this the search page, and the search page again. The search page. If I want to see all the fields on this page, I have to scroll up the page so I can see additional information. If I do select one of the fields near the bottom of the screen, it will scroll up for me automatically so it can display all of the items in the drop-down list. And in this case, I'll pick one of the items. And if I want to go back, I can scroll back. Somewhere, if I was looking to pick a different organization, I could click on that and it would scroll it up and show me the organizations. Here I'm gonna now I will select I'll type in an organization. I didn't show this in a previous demo, but if I type in, you can type ahead for these fields and it'll narrow down the list of available fields. I'm gonna go back to the top. I'll leave my building and floor the same, and then I will click the search button. And then we see the available rooms page. If I want to understand what's in the legend, or what's on the graphic, I can display this legend and get the information, then close it again, and it'll show my graphic again. I can pick a room I want to move to. Then I'll select that room. It'll move me to the summary page, and then I can click submit. When I click submit, we'll see a toast message indicating that a request has been created, and it returns me to the my request page. And that's it for the mobile format of the MoveMe application.